Great, let's go for it.
Good evening, my name is Arthur Miller. These are some things you hear every day. Slang is what we call it. This is the way the majority of our society talks in America, regardless of race. Today I will be telling you about some of the contributors to the growth of slang and the meaning of slang words from different people's perspective. Slang first started its advancement with the white poet Walt Whitman in the 18th century. Walt introduced new meaning to the words in American language. He began with the words such as prophecy, spirit, and insult. Insult meaning to leap against. A particular phrase that you may have heard before. If you feeling froggy, then leap. As the years went on, more slang words were introduced to society, such as new meaning to the words peace, burn, and ham. Some words cause controversy in American society. One word in particular is nigga. It became a term of endearment among African Americans. Endearment meaning an act or word expressing affection. Some African Americans did not feel the same way about the term and felt that the meaning did not change from the origin word. One contributor to the hip hop and slang language was Tupac Shakur. He explained the meaning between the two words best, saying that, excuse me for this word, nigger is a black man with a slavery chain around his neck, and nigga being a black man with a gold chain around his neck, saying that there really is no difference between the two words. On that note, I would like to invite the audience to explain how they think slang has affected today's society and how it will affect today or future societies. Anyone?
I mean, I use slang, and I think it's become part of my style to the point where I don't recognize it until I go somewhere outside of Dayton, right? And then the slang is less familiar to people, and they're like, what are you talking about? And then I begin to be aware of the words that I've modified or our community has modified, and now I have to share the meaning of those words with others. Do it in my family too, right? Within the family, we sometimes make up words or names for people, and outside of the family, people wouldn't understand.
Well, if no one else has any...
There's more.
I think after a period of time, people like being called that name after a period of time. Yes, I don't know if they accepted it, but it seemed that way at first, like by them calling each other that. But after a while, it seems so common that people don't even realize, like we were saying, they don't even realize that they're speaking that way, I guess.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I know, like, I was born in Dayton, but like my parents were like born in Alabama, so like it was kind of confusing, you know, coming up here, and then sometimes I'll say a lot of like a whole bunch of summers down in Alabama, and I would get used to their kind of habitat and their type of culture. So when I bring it up here, I had a lot of job offers, you know, that I was so used and I was so adapted to the lifestyle that I lived down in Alabama. But when I came up here in Dayton, really anybody didn't know what I was talking about. So yes, it can have an effect or some kind of thing about it that's like as the world continues to grow, as technology continues to improve, you know, I think more slang will be accepted because it's more common in today's
I was going to say that I actually work at an old folks home, and I think slang's funny because I hear a lot of old people saying slang, and it's from their generation,
Right.
And you're just like, what are you talking about? And I just think it's really funny. It's because they use their own slang, but we use our own slang too, and they wouldn't understand a word either. So
Right.
I just think generations just make it, there's a gap between slang. I think it's funny.
It is funny. That to me is where Tupac's use of nigga, right, when heard by my mother is offensive. But when you hear it, maybe isn't offensive. I don't know. I don't want to suggest that. When you hear it, maybe it isn't offensive. You see what I mean? Like that generational difference, cultural difference. And so then we begin to have misunderstandings, I think, too.
You just have to understand where they came from, think about it a little bit. Because, you know, I've heard a lot of terms they use, but it's like to them, they might not think that's offensive to today's. Because, like, they'll say things that may be offensive now.
Right, right.
But it's like they wouldn't know, they're just out of there, and just that's what the proper terms used for and stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine my grandfather using a word like Afro-American, and we haven't heard that for 30 years, right? Or colored.
Yeah, I hear that a lot.
Right.
They're like, they'll always ask me who's that colored person. They're not trying to me,
That's just what they know. I stopped you from saying something.
He kind of said what I was going to say, but I can also say that like everyone said, everybody, different cultures and things, they have their own slang, but I feel like no matter where you come from, there's always going to be somebody looking at you different based on the way you speak and the things you say, like you should be denied job opportunities and so many things. So I feel like slang is basically a part of our culture, but it can have some effect on us in the future, depending on, like, if you want a job, depending on who's offering the job, and how you dress and the way you talk, things like that. And then how we text and things, you know how some people it carries over into their papers academically and how they work, so.
Anyone else?
Just be careful when you use slang.
Yeah.
You need to know when to use it and when not to use it.
I think, like, directly relating to this class, it kind of sounds like what everybody kind of touched on it a little bit, but I think this is important, like, to only use slang when you're around, like, your social circle, because, like, as our world is getting more diversified, like you said, one word in my culture, slang might be something offensive to someone else. So I think, especially when you're like speaking publicly, it's important to make sure you're just following like the standard English and not including slang so you don't offend someone that might not be familiar.
Erica, what about when using standard English leads people from within your own community to think you've somehow sold out?
Well,
I mean, I'm the white guy saying that, right? But that is what happens.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that?
How do you deal with that? Well, when you're within your circle, I mean, there's a phrase like dumbing down, which I don't really think you should do that because, I mean, it's English. You should know how to speak and understand proper English. So it shouldn't offend someone by me wanting to use the correct word. But it does happen, but I think that's just something, you know, a personal problem that that person has because, I mean, really, slang, I think, should only be used in, like, more social settings, not in, like,
Professional
a public
settings.
setting, I feel.
I think it can be
But,
incorporated.
yeah, that's a balance.
I think it sometimes has to be incorporated because you want to be able to relate to your audience better sometimes, so they'll use it on purpose to do that.
Yeah, but like when you have a more diversified audience, like see someone like Sylvie, English is what her like third language, is it? So she's learning English from a textbook and she uses like a dictionary to help translate her words. If I'm using like slang, Sylvie is going to be left out. She is a part of my audience and you shouldn't use terms that part of your audience might not be familiar with.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
One thing I can say on what you said, I didn't like to dumb down among my brothers and sisters considering I was adopted. I actually came into the household speaking complete English and they used to always want me to, oh yeah, say this, you have to use this, and I didn't comprehend it. So But in conclusion to my speech, we are all contributors to the slang language, and it will not end. I'm just going to put it simple. So that's what I believe. It will not end.
Yeah.
This has been Arthur V. Miller III presentation.